travelers, and welcome to Go See, Do Explore.
Here, we dive deep into the heart of travel, sharing hidden gems, unforgettable experiences, and the stories that make each destination unique.
Whether you're a seasoned traveler or dreaming of your next getaway, you're in the right place to get inspired.
I'm Christopher.
And I'm Ashleigh.
And together, we'll set the course for your next great adventure and discover the stories that make each place unforgettable.
It's time to go, see, and do more. Let's explore. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Go See, Do Explore. We are broadcasting today from our mobile studio.
Yeah, this might sound a little different than normal. We hope that you allow that, because this is quite the studio.
Yes, this is our mobile studio, which is our laptop on top of a cooler.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were planning on
That's fine.
addressing that. We are out of doors in the mountains of Puerto Rico near Luquillo.
Yeah, so you might hear various birds. You might hear roosters. You might hear people playing salsa music. You might hear cars and honking.
Dogs barking. Maybe, if you're lucky, you might hear coqui frogs.
Yeah, I hope you hear the coqui frogs. We've been hearing them since we've been here. We're up in the mountains looking down at Luquillo and Fajardo. It's an incredible place.
It wasn't our plan, but we'll kind of talk more about that in another episode.
Yeah, for sure. And we have El Yunque over to our left, the rainforest. This is just about as scenic as it gets, I would say. So I hope we were trying to decide whether to go inside or not, and I just didn't want to go inside. It's just too nice out here.
And I'm hoping that you might get a little ambient sounds of Puerto Rican mountains.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we got here after spending a few nights in probably one of our favorite places.
Yeah.
And that is Old San Juan.
Yes. Old San Juan, or Viejo San Juan, as they say.
I feel like I saw Antiguo San Juan somewhere. Maybe
interesting.
That may have been on the weather app or something.
Maybe
unofficial.
all the signs say Viejo San Juan.
Yeah.
And the famous song.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Yeah.
Is that copyrighted?
I can look into it.
It's pretty old, so maybe you can find a free version.
So we're talking about Old San Juan today. That's all of that rambling to get to this. Kind of a destination spotlight, maybe a little bit of a trip recap too. But it's one of our favorite places, like Ashleigh said, and so we wanted to talk about it so that you, one, want to go there, and two, so you know what we think are fun things to do that we've done. I want to preface this. I know I've mentioned on other podcasts, I love Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. I've been very nervous to talk about Puerto Rico just because I feel like it's a place that we're not really qualified as experts. We've been here a lot. I mean, we've spent probably over a month here now in total between all of our trips. But still, I mean, just, we're people who just started coming here a couple years ago, and all of this we're going to present as, the information that we know, the things that we like, and we won't give you bad information, but there may be better information out there too, and I would encourage you to seek that out and share it with us. Podcast at goseedoexplore.com. Absolutely let us know if you find good Puerto Rico tips, because I'd imagine we're going to keep coming back here for a long time.
This is our fourth trip to Puerto Rico in less than 4 years.
Yeah.
And every single time, part of that trip has been in Old San Juan. We've kind of moved around the other places, but so we visited Old San Juan 4 times, 2 different times of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a place that we enjoy and we're excited to talk about.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what Old San Juan is. San Juan, Puerto Rico, is the capital of Puerto Rico, a territory of the United States in the Greater Antilles in the Caribbean. San Juan is the second oldest European city or European establishment in the Americas, and it's the oldest European established city in the United States. And so that's sort of the context. When you fly to Puerto Rico, there are a couple of airports, but typically you'll fly to San Juan. The airport is there. Big city with a lot of manufacturing, a lot of industry, a lot going on there. Old San Juan is on this island in the bay of San Juan, and it is the original city. San Juan was originally a walled city, a fortified city. A lot of those walls still stand, no, though not all of them. There is one remaining gate still standing that you can walk through. And there are several large forts, or castillos, as they call them, that still remain. One in particular, San Felipe del Morro, is gigantic. It's a huge fort, and is really emblematic of the city and of Puerto Rico. You'll see, for example, some of its structure on their license plates here and things like that. So it was founded in 1496, originally basically as a military outpost. Puerto Rico has been an important strategic military position for a long time because of its position in the Caribbean on the very eastern edge of a lot of these islands. And so it was used by the Spanish to defend the island and to defend their territorial claims in the Caribbean and in the Americas. Old San Juan now is, I hate to boil it down to say a tourist destination, because there is certainly more to it than that. It's a major historical destination, and people live there. People do live there. It's not like it doesn't close at 6 and they close the gates or whatever, right? Like, it is a real part of the city.
In some ways, it's kind of like Venice in that way. It's got the history, it's got the beauty, and it is still a working city. It's not just a place that's there for the tourists.
Yeah, but a lot of what you'll encounter when you go to Old San Juan is tourism focused. So let's just talk about some of those things, the things that we've done, the things that we enjoy. What would you say is first for you?
I mean, you mentioned the forts. That's probably the biggest tourist destination or tourist attraction in Old San Juan. They are currently managed by the National Park Service. You can purchase admission, was it $10 a person?
Yeah, it was $10 a person for, I think, 2 days. Gets you into both forts.
Yeah, you can go to both forts. So if you've got time, you don't have to do them one right after another. If you're visiting on a cruise ship and you want to see both, that's probably how you're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be the hardest part of the day when you're doing it. And there's no shade up there. Those forts were made for war, not your comfort. But they do have really, really good views of the shoreline of the city. And yeah, there's a lot of history there. You'll read at the displays in the fort about how both the British and the Dutch, I believe, bombed, or maybe not bombed, but attacked the fort. That was back in like the 1700s, so it's been a long time since I really saw much action. And probably one of my favorite, or maybe not favorite isn't the right word, but one of the most interesting anecdotes to me about the fort is that they were very strategic during World War II. I'm sure we learned that in school. That
I don't think we did.
You don't think so?
I don't think we talked about it.
That there are lookouts that are kind of like modern lookouts, not so much, the carved out cannon holes you see in a lot of that era of fort that were used for soldiers in modern times to look for U-boats in the Caribbean. And I believe it was successful.
Yeah.
The Germans were all the way out here, which is not something I realized. And so that's fascinating history to me.
Yeah. So the forts are a great thing to do. San Felipe del Morro and also San Cristobal is the other. There is, I think, one more fortification, but it's not included in, it's not required. You don't need to buy admission. There are actually a few other spots you can go. Related to that, and one that I really like, is also part of the National Historic Site, is the Paseo del Morro, which is this walking path that goes right along the water. It starts at Paseo de la Princesa, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it goes all the way around past the remaining old city gate, all the way around El Morro, and then you kind of go up the hill and you're at the fort. You're right on the water, it's very scenic, and one of the best things about this walk is there is a colony of feral cats that's cared for by a charity called Save a Gato, and so you get to see all these cats just laying out in the sun or hiding under bushes as a part of that walk.
Yeah, there's some controversy there. A couple of years ago, the National Park Service announced they were going to try to evict the cats. Yeah. They were not planning on killing them, to be clear. They just kind of wanted to move them.
Right. Well, they were saying that the cats are not part of the national park. They're essentially an invasive species. But the National Historic Site is in a city. It's not.
It's a city on an island.
Yeah.
There's not really anywhere else for them to go. Sevigato does do a thing, like it does do a foster to adopt program where they find fosters to bring them in and then hopefully adopt them. And you can actually, if you are flying to or from San Juan, or probably just from San Juan, if you're flying from San Juan, you can actually enter your flight information, and if they have any cats that need to go to your destination, they will fill out all the paperwork and you can carry a cat with you on your flight for free, just as a way to kind of to help the overpopulation of the feral cats in San Juan.
Yeah, but that's a charity worth looking into and supporting. We like them. But yeah, it's a nice walk, and this time we did it as a part of our visiting of the forts. We sort of started there. We walked down the hill by the cathedral, through the gate, and then around. So that's one I'd recommend.
The other, which we kind of talked about when we were talking about our favorite Christmas celebrations a few episodes back, Paseo de la Princesa is awesome at Christmas time. They put up a kind of walk-through light display that's really fun. We kind of accidentally stumbled onto it this year on the Saturday after Christmas, and it was a big party.
Yeah.
It was not what I was looking for in that moment, but there was a band playing and lots of tents selling various things, beer stands and all that. But I don't know if it was just the day that we were there or if that's something that always happens on that day. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the past we've walked down to the end of it, and there's like a fountain, and you can stare out at the bay and enjoy sort of a quiet moment, but it was not quiet this year. It was quite loud.
Yes.
The band sounded pretty good, but it was different than normal for us.
Right.
Also down there is the Puerto Rican tourism company. Their offices are down in Paseo de la Princesa, and it's really cool because it's in this old jail. It's kind of this cool building that's down there that you can see. The Puerto Rican tourism company does a great job. They've really been putting out amazing materials and really helpful materials at discoverpuertorico.com that are very helpful if you want to visit Puerto Rico. I would check out their website, and they have it in both English and Spanish, so whichever you prefer, it's there. Also, right around there, the Fortaleza is the governor's mansion. The governor of Puerto Rico is like the chief executive of Puerto Rico, and this is the oldest executive mansion in the New World, in the Americas. Is that right? Yeah. And so during the year, I believe they do tours and things like that sometimes, but there's also Calle Fortaleza right there, which has, during the year, there's all these umbrellas, like very colorful umbrellas. It's really cool if you've seen.
They'll do different things throughout the year. So sometimes it'll be umbrellas, sometimes it'll be different things. It just depends on when you're visiting.
Okay. And then during Christmas, they have lights, and then there's a projection show. Encendido de Navidad is the name of the projection show. And
for this year anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and it's on the side of the Fortaleza. It's pretty fun.
And I have to say, like, some of the best visual effects I've seen outside of Disney.
Yeah.
When it comes to the kind of projection show with the music, and it really inspires some Disney feelings, and I almost wonder if they hired some old Imagineers or something the first time they did it. I don't know.
Maybe.
Something we did last year that was really fun and a good way to kind of get to know the city was we did a free walking tour, and she took us, we had been to Old San Juan a few times by that time, and she took us to places that we had never seen, and we learned things about the city that we didn't know. So I believe it was free walking tours, but let me Google it. It is Old San Juan Free Walking Tour at osjfreetour.com, and you can book it right on their website. And we've talked about the free walking tours before, that you shouldn't think of it as a free tour, more that they do the tour for tips. So you're going to pay something, but it's up to you how much you're going to pay. And, depending on how good the guide is, you tip appropriately.
And, also what the going rate is for a tour in that place. That's kind of how I would think about it. I'd say the other thing I recommend is there are lots of stores shopping, some of them very good and interesting, some of them basically like they pulled some shirt off of a container ship and are selling it to you.
Yes.
Those I would try to avoid, but there are some really cool ones. There are two in particular I want to call out. One is Poet's Passage, which is, I guess, an art gallery Yeah, it's an art gallery, and then they have some poetry readings that happen there too. But we've bought art there a couple times, and we really like Poet's Passage.
It is an artist, Nico. He is French. He was born in France, and his wife is from here.
I think so.
I think so. And they met and got married, and she does poetry, and he does his art of absolutely beautiful paintings of the colorful buildings of Old San Juan. Yeah, I absolutely love his stuff.
Yeah. The other I would mention specifically is Puerto Rican Arts and Crafts, which this is not the only one like this, but this is one that we've bought from a few times. They have lots of handmade items made right here in Puerto Rico. I can say right here in Puerto Rico because we're right here in Puerto Rico right now. And so if you want to go home with some nice handmade objects that again, were made here by people here and benefit this economy, that's one for sure. And there are some others too, and you can look into them and just make sure that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, Puerto Rican Arts and Crafts is on Calle Fortaleza. So there's just a few other ones that say something similar on the sign, and that's just the one that we like the best. One thing I wanted to mention is that there are no beaches in Old San Juan. So if you're looking for a beach type vacation, maybe you want to stay outside of the city and do a day trip into Old San Juan, or you're going to take a day trip to one of the nearby beaches. They're not that far away, but just know that it's not going to be a walk from your hotel to a beach.
Yeah.
There are plenty of beaches in the San Juan area.
Yeah. So those are just a few of the many things you can do in Old San Juan, and there are a lot more certainly, but it's a place that is really fun to just be, and it has that European feel in terms of the buildings, the architecture, the layout of the city. And if you're in the United States, it is so accessible as a territory of the United States, as a part of the United States. It's a domestic flight.
You don't need a passport.
Right.
Although you will need real ID, bro.
You will need real ID, bro. Something that a TSA agent said to me one time. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges to visiting Old San Juan, because as much as we love it, it's not without difficulty at times to visit there. And then also you want to be a conscientious traveler too, and to not make a bad situation worse while you're traveling. What would you say are some of the challenges to Old San Juan?
Kind of like any old European city that we visited, it's not a car-friendly destination.
And yet there are so many.
There are so many cars.
This is how you know it's here and not there.
Yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. If you are planning a trip to Puerto Rico and you're going to also be visiting some places outside of Old San Juan, what we have done that makes it a lot easier is do Old San Juan at the beginning or the end of your trip and just shorten your rental. It's not hard to drop off your rental car at the airport and then pick up an Uber into the city.
Yeah.
Parking is difficult and it is expensive. Driving in the city is difficult, and we'll get to, at times when there are just so many people, it can be almost dangerous to drive in Old San Juan. So I don't recommend that, but I definitely recommend that you don't only visit Old San Juan or San Juan in general. So if you're planning a longer trip, plan to do Old San Juan at the beginning or the end.
Yeah, exactly. There was one time where we parked. I mean, that's exactly what we did. It's like you go to Old San Juan, you find the parking garage, you leave your car, and you don't come back to it until it's time to go.
Right.
Just because of the timing of the trip, it was less expensive to do that than to run around. But in general, yeah, there are a lot of cars. If you've been to any of the European cities now that are limiting car traffic, Old San Juan, I think, is a great candidate for that same kind of a thing, but it's just not set up for that right now. So you get every person imaginable driving down on these old, what are the streets made out
Cobblestone.
of? Is it cobblestone?
Right.
It's some kind of a stone. very cool, like bluish kind of stone. And it's a zoo. I mean, for sure, it's just a zoo.
We were talking to somebody at our hotel who was talking about how, you know, if you're going to drive in Old San Juan, you should have a small car. I don't remember which car he specifically said, but he's like, you don't need that big SUV. That's for gardening. Leave that in the mountains. Drive a small car when you're here.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Another challenge, I mean, a very much related challenge, is, as we've mentioned on the podcast before, it can be overcrowded down there when there are big cruise ships in. Something you might be able to do is just to look at the schedule. If you've got some flexibility and when you're going to be down there, like, if it's at all possible, I would try to choose a day, or at least to have one day where there aren't a lot of cruise ships in. May or may not be possible. There are a lot of cruise ships, they're in most days. So it's just, you know.
And it just depends on what size of
Right.
ship is there that day is kind of what it feels like
Yeah.
to me. Because one day we were there and it was 2 smaller ships and it was not difficult to get into the restaurants to, you know, walk around in the town. And then 2 mega ships pull in and it's almost like you can't, I don't even know how people were driving that day. There were people just like taking over the streets.
Yeah. And so it might just be really crowded, and you want to plan your day like any crowded destination. I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast before or not, but something we talk about in terms of planning to crowded destinations is really try to maximize your mornings and your evenings and have some downtime in the middle of the day. This also works really well for San Juan because one of the other challenges to San Juan is it can be very hot and humid in the middle of the day without a lot of shade opportunities. So if you've got somewhere to go, like we always stay down there, if you can like get out in the morning, do some stuff, go back to your hotel, your Airbnb, whatever, hang out somewhere cool for a couple hours and then go back out at night. At night it'll still be crowded, but it's a different kind of crowded. I don't know, like people are going into places.
It's got energy to it.
Yeah, it's not just like people wandering around in the middle of the road with their lanyards and flip-flops. Like, sorry, cruisers. I'm a cruiser too, but like, you know who you are.
Oh, it's so
like,
bad. I remember one of the times we went to a shop at Old San Juan and they were like, she said, oh, did you come on the boat? I was like, no, please don't lump me in with those people.
Yeah, even though we love cruising, just be aware, you know, it's just one of those things. So we will often go back to the hotel in the middle of the day and take a nap, or like if we stay, we're going to talk about hotels in the second half. If we stay at our favorite hotel down there, there's a free open bar, so you can have something to drink and hang out in the cool air conditioning and then go back out at night. Another challenge in general down there is with the overcrowding, the restaurant situation can just be really hard to navigate. It seems like there are a lot of restaurants down there, but they will all be very busy or not have tables, or they'll seat you but not talk to you. Like, and this is nothing against any particular restaurant. It's just is a very difficult situation sometimes. And so we try to do a couple things. One, we try to make sure we have reservations laid out. Is helpful to know that at least you're going to have a table. The other thing that we've never done before, but I've come to the conclusion after this trip, is you need a backup meal. If you're going to be in Old San Juan for any length of time, I just feel like the likelihood that some meal is going to go sideways on you is pretty good. We were down there this time. There was a power outage, a partial power outage. So people were running on generators, but like they didn't have all their cooking equipment.
Right. Their like ordering system wasn't working properly.
Yeah, and it just like we basically spent 3 hours trying to get lunch, walking restaurant to restaurant, and if I just had something in the room that I could have gone and eaten, I think I would have just done that. And there was another trip too where we had sort of a different problem, but it was sort of the same thing. We didn't end up eating until 11 o'clock at night or something like that. And so yeah, I think just have a backup meal. I would say.
Yeah, the power outage thing is kind of common in Puerto Rico. I think it was a problem before Maria, but Maria made their power grid even more unstable. The hurricane, I should mention, not like some giant person.
Yeah.
And since then, it will just kind of go out randomly. Like it rained that day, but it wasn't like a big storm, and it just took out power in some parts of Old San Juan. So that's just something to be aware of when you're looking for accommodations. More so if you're going outside of San Juan. The city of San Juan, I think, is a little bit stronger than some other parts in Puerto Rico. Looking for a place that has backup power and a backup water source isn't a bad idea.
Yeah. And it has steadily improved since Maria, but there's still a lot of challenges ahead. Okay, well, I think we're probably halfway. You want to take a wine break?
We don't have any wine.
Yeah.
Is it a mojito break? Can it be
It
a
might be
mojito
a
break?
mojito break.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the mojito break. We're here for the mojito break because that's what we have, and it's the appropriate thing to have in a place like this. What do you think?
Well, I just put on some lime and it was really sour.
Oh,
But other than that, this is exactly what I was looking for.
good.
It's light and refreshing. A little bit of citrus, a little bit of mint.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So a mojito is sugar, rum, usually white rum, mint, lime, and club soda, soda water. And yeah, I mean, there's some steps to the preparation, but that's it, really. So it's a perfect drink for a place like this. The rum that I used is Don Q, or Don Q, if you prefer, is made near Ponce here in Puerto Rico. It's a Puerto Rican rum. As far as rums go, like their white rum is a pretty basic white rum. Like it's not a super fancy rum, but you don't need or want a super fancy rum for this drink. And so it's perfect. White Bacardi is also very common, but you know, that's also some of it made here, but more of a global brand. And Don Q is from right here, so we prefer it. Okay, good mojito break.
So we kind of mentioned earlier in the episode that we have a favorite place to stay in Old San Juan, and we kind of stumbled upon it on accident on our first trip to Puerto Rico, and it is the Hotel El Colonial. It is an adults-only hotel, and it has an open bar, which you don't see very often in the U.S. I know we went to a talk a few years ago at the travel show by Russell Hannon, and he was talking about trying to find hotels as a way to save money, try to find hotels that have an open bar, happy hour type thing. And I was like, oh, you haven't been to El Colonial, have you? We checked in the first time when we got off the cruise ship at I don't even know if it was 8 a.m. yet. And he was like, would you like some rum? I was like, no, I would like a nap is what I'd like.
Yeah, it's this 4-story hotel in this old building, 250-year-old building on the east side of Old San Juan. It's probably 2 blocks from Plaza Colón and San Cristobal, the fort. It's a little part of Old San Juan that we like where it is. It's on Calle San Francisco. And the open bar is nice, not because we're partiers, we're not, but it's just like things in Old San Juan tend to be pretty expensive overall. This is not an inexpensive destination in terms of like food and lodging and things like that. So that little perk is a nice one.
Yes.
Plus, it's kind of like, as I said, having, the home base. It's nice to have a home base that also has a bar. It would be nice if it also had some food, but that's probably too much to ask. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. But, it's just nice to go back and that there's something there. You're not like, oh, I'd like to go get, something to drink, and so for that I have to go out somewhere and pay something. It's nice just to have it where you are. They also have an awesome rooftop that you can take drinks up to. Now you have to climb the 4 flights of stairs each time that you do it because there's no elevator, but it's great.
Something I didn't really realize until we were leaving the other day is they don't have any sort of container liquor laws like in some other places in the U.S. So you can go to your free bar at the hotel and then, drink your drink in the streets, which I'd never even thought to do that.
We've never done that.
It's kind of like New Orleans in that way.
Yeah. So we've stayed there 3 times now.
Of the 4 times we've visited Old San Juan.
The other time we stayed at an Airbnb, which was really cool too. It was right by the cathedral over in that part of town. And it had a nice rooftop too, although it was so hot when we were there that time that we didn't really use it. But that was a cool one too. You can find lots of cool Airbnbs in Old San Juan too. They can also be very pricey.
Yeah. Probably the most famous hotel in Old San Juan. We've never stayed there just because it tends to be more expensive than we want to pay. But that is Hotel El Convento, which is the old convent in Old San Juan. And it is supposedly haunted, but it's
of course.
But it's a very, very cool building with a lot of history there.
Yeah, it's right by the cathedral, too, as you'd expect.
With
The convent being right by the cathedral. It's a great location. They're supposed to have a really good restaurant, too. Mm-hmm. That's one we'll have to do sometime. Yeah. Just to see what it's all about. We've walked around through it. Mm-hmm. It was really nice. But I would recommend, if Old San Juan is really what you're trying to do, I would try to stay in Old San Juan. I wouldn't stay outside of Old San Juan. Now, there are a few hotels just outside. Most famously, the Caribe Hilton is kind of just outside Old San Juan, and there are a couple hotels there. That would be okay, I think. And then a little bit farther out, close to the airport, there's a zone of hotels called Isla Verde. I wouldn't stay in Isla Verde. I'll just put it that way.
The traffic there is crazy. The few times that we've driven there, it's like, well, this is worse than Old San Juan somehow.
and it feels almost like, you know how sometimes when you go to the Caribbean and it's like, not in Puerto Rico, like in a different country, and it's like, oh, the U.S. just like transplanted here. That's kind of what Isla Verde feels like too. Obviously, Puerto Rico is the U.S., but it's still sort of like it feels like people from the mainland just kind of carved out their spot. And so it's, I mean, there are some nice hotels there for sure, but that's not where I would go.
We didn't mention in the things to think about in visiting Old San Juan, but in general, most everyone you encounter will speak English.
Oh, yeah.
The menus will be in Spanish and English, but we've never, in Old San Juan, I don't think we've ever encountered a time where we had to speak Spanish. Other parts of Puerto Rico, absolutely, but not in Old San Juan, or really there was an incident in the gas station in the San Juan area, but in Old San Juan,
right,
English is widely spoken.
There was an incident in the gas station. Yeah. My experience has been that the people in San Juan want to talk to you in English. I think there are a couple different reasons why that may be, but in general, it doesn't hurt to pick up a few Spanish phrases, though. Like, it's just polite to know how to say hello and thank you and please and all that. I think that's good.
Una mesa para dos.
Right. Little restaurant phrases are good. But you probably won't need it in San Juan, honestly, especially in Old San Juan. Do you want to talk about restaurants?
Yes. So one of the reasons that I love San Juan, or Old San Juan, is just it's got a really good food scene.
Yeah, if you can get food, it's good.
So, of course, there are places to get the Puerto Rican cuisine, which is a lot of bananas. And
plantains, likewise.
This is coming from someone who's allergic to bananas, so take that with a little grain of salt. And I'm like, it's bananas everywhere.
I haven't had to tell anyone that you're allergic to bananas yet this trip, actually. No. It may yet happen, but yeah.
Lechon is
yes,
kind of like a barbecue pork. Would you barbecue? No.
It's like rotisserie.
Yeah, but
it's a suckling pig.
Yes, whole hog.
Lechon, like leche, right? Like it's a suckling pig.
That is a specialty of Puerto Rico, and there are definitely places in Old San Juan to find food like that. Arroz con gandules is another specialty.
Yeah, that's really good.
Is there anything else? We don't really have any one Puerto Rican restaurant suggestion in Old San Juan. We haven't really eaten at many Puerto Rican restaurants in Old San Juan for whatever reason.
The bananas is the reason.
Probably.
Yeah, because mofongo is another big specialty here, which is like mashed up plantains.
Oh, and tostones, that's a fried plantain.
Yeah. So this is why we don't go to a lot of the Puerto Rican restaurants.
Because it's not fun to sit down at a restaurant, look at a menu, and then say to the server, "What do you have here that doesn't contain bananas?"
It's delicious. As someone who's not allergic to bananas, and I know you would like it too. I know you would. It just you can't because you'll blow up.
Give me mofongo and an EpiPen.
Yeah.
So some of our favorite restaurants, non-Puerto Rican, in Old San Juan. For breakfast and lunch, we really like a really old school place called Cafeteria Mallorca.
Yeah.
Mallorca in Puerto Rico is a bread that's like circular, kind of a pastry, somewhere between bread and a pastry.
It's kind of like, okay, this cheapens it, but if you've ever had those King's Hawaiian rolls, it's like a good version of that, right? Maybe not quite as sweet as that.
It's not as sweet as that.
But it's like kind of that kind of eggy, sweet bread. Brioche is maybe sort of close.
Cafeteria Mallorca makes it into a sandwich, and then they also have this really old school coffee and milk dispenser machine that is really cool. I swear we've been going to that place for like 4 years, and it's the same people working there every single time.
With the styrofoam plates.
Although they're not styrofoam anymore. Right. They got rid of the styrofoam plates and cups, and it is now paper.
This might be totally untrue, but in my mind, I imagine that these old men just like refuse to hire a dishwasher or do dishes. They're like, no, it will be on disposable plates.
They have some other food as well. I know the first time we went there, you had some kind of pork.
No, I had churrasco, which is what I was going to mention. One of my favorite things to eat in Puerto Rico is churrasco, which is specifically skirt steak, usually. That churrasco, a lot of times for Brazilian or Argentinian food, sometimes it just means like steak, right? Like if you go to a churrascaria, but the cut specifically is usually skirt steak, and it is delicious here. It is I think, I'm just going to say it. It's my favorite steak. I used to be a ribeye guy. I still like a ribeye. But no, churrasco prepared like the Puerto Rican way, my favorite steak. And they have it here in Puerto Rico and in San Juan. And you can get it at Mallorca.
We also enjoy for breakfast, or really, we've also gone there at happy hour, and that is Choco Bar Cortez.
Yes.
Everything on their menu contains chocolate. They have, mocha coffee type drinks. There's chocolate milkshakes. They have chocolate cocktails. They have a cocktail there that might be one of your all-time favorite cocktails.
The Don Ignacio, which is Barrilito rum, which is a special rum here from Puerto Rico. And then it has, I think, brandy, chocolate bitters, some like spiced syrup, like mulling spices. And then the cup is dipped in chocolate, which is just like makes it extra nice.
But their breakfast is great. The first time we went, we had some kind of Spanish ham and cheese croquetas that had like a chocolate sauce on top. And it's not a sweet chocolate. It's not all like over the top sweet. They have savory things too that they're working chocolate in ways that you wouldn't expect. So that's a really fun one, but is one that can be very popular when the cruise ship people are in. So the middle of the day can be challenging there. We also really like a Mexican restaurant, kind of a modern Mexican restaurant really close to El Colonial, and that is La Madre. They have very good margaritas, tacos. What did you have?
Sopes. Those were really good. Sopes norteños. They had that steak on it. They had that steak that I like.
And the same company that owns La Madre also owns an Italian restaurant called La O, which we went to for the first time. That was one that finally served us after 3 hours of wandering in the city for food.
Good job, La O. You had food and gave it to us.
We had their pizza. It was great. And we also really like an Argentinian restaurant that is
El Viejo Almacén.
Yes.
The old warehouse.
And it is right by the Fortaleza, which is how we discovered that there was that light show the first time we left the restaurant. We were like, what is happening out here? Why are these people standing by this barricade?
Yeah. Also, the first time we went there, the Three Kings showed up. It was a priest and the Three Kings, and they walked in and had dinner. Which was amazing.
Yeah. And something that is really popular in Old San Juan, or maybe iconic is a better word than popular, is popsicles. Senor Paleta is probably the most well-known popsicle brand, but it's really cool. It's right by what we refer to as Paleta Park, because you get your popsicle and then you go to the park and you look out over the water.
That's not what it's actually called.
No, it's some part of the Park Service and San Juan National Historic Site. But they have all kinds of flavors of fruity popsicles. They have Nutella, they have coconut, and they're all made right here in Puerto Rico, which is really cool. I was disappointed when we went to the grocery store the other day and they didn't have Senor Paleta in the grocery store. That is a swing and a miss.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there are any others. We've eaten some other places too. Some of them have been good. Some of them have been not good. Just do your best to research and try things out. But there's a lot of great options.
And before this trip, I did some research on Discover Puerto Rico, and I found a list, like a map, which I'll link in the show notes. It was a map of places in Puerto Rico where you can get Puerto Rican coffee. We went to 2 different coffee bars, because there are coffee bars all over Puerto Rico, but a lot of them are importing beans. And so we found 2 different coffee bars. The first one we went to, do you remember what it was called?
Cuatro Sombras?
Cafe Cuatro Sombras.
Cafe Cuatro Sombras.
Right. And they were actually roasting the beans, like right there, right next to where they were using their espresso machine. So that was pretty cool. And their coffee was very good. Finca Cielitos was the other coffee bar that we found with Puerto Rican coffee, all grown on their coffee farm in Cielitos, which was pretty cool. It was just steps from El Colonial, and it was funny because their hours were like 8 to 2, 8-ish to 2-ish, sometimes closed to go to the coffee farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can really count on you. But their coffee was very, very good. We bought some beans to take home.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
And if you're not, or if you're looking to just buy beans, some of the souvenir stores and even that pharmacy, that Puerto Rico drug, sells Puerto Rican coffee beans. Another roaster and grower that we like is Cafe Lareño, which is in Lares, Puerto Rico, which is maybe 2 hours from San Juan. It's a place you can visit if you're looking for a day trip, but their beans are kind of all over to be purchased. They were even in the grocery store.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Well, I hope that's just a nice little taste of one of our favorite places to visit. And certainly if you've got any tips about Old San Juan or about Puerto Rico in general, please get a hold of us, podcast@GoSeeDoExplore.com. We plan on talking more about other areas of Puerto Rico. For example, we really, really love the northeast corner of the island. That's where we are right now. Like literally I'm looking at Luquillo and Fajardo at the same time, which I didn't know was possible. But yeah, these are some great places that I'm sure we'll be talking about soon as well. And we've been all over. We've been to Ponce, we've been to Rincon, we've been all of these different places, and we do plan on talking about them. So looking forward to that.
Yes. We will talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. That's all for today's episode of Go, See, Do, Explore. Thank you for joining us and sharing in the wonder of travel.
Keep the spirit of today's adventure alive by checking out our blog at GoSeeDoExplore.com for even more travel inspiration.
You can also get in touch with us by emailing us at podcast@GoSeeDoExplore.com. And don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps fellow travelers find us and join our community.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep traveling by any means necessary.
I'm Christopher.
And I'm Ashleigh, bidding you farewell and happy exploring.